It's Katie Rose, straight up with a twist. What's up, humans? This is Katie Rose, straight up with a twist. Welcome to the show. So I'd like to say I can kick. I recently went to a dance audition and was very excited to see a friend who is of similar age. And I immediately hugged her because I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't been to a dance called in how long? And luckily, I keep up with my yoga. So I'm actually still flexible and I wasn't as crickety as I thought I would be. And I did great. I didn't get a call back. I almost wore heels. If I wore heels, part of me feels like I could have gotten a call back. I feel like in casting, I'm always, dismissed because of my shortness. But there were a couple girls that were kept, and admittedly, they were in better shape than I. They're more naturally smaller framed than I am, but they were definitely wearing heels, and I was like, ah, man. But my heel had broken. The sole of the shoe was coming off, and I quickly glued it, and I thought, what's better? This sole could fly off in the middle of my audition, or I'll just wear flats and it's totally fine because I was really only trying to get to the next part of the audition. But it's weird because I was like, in the day of dance, it's not the same as it used to be, especially with contemporary movement and hip hop. It's changed so much. And I'm sure you can look back and look at those old videos of, that one lady who kind of looks like Liza Minnelli. She's like, this is hip hop. And you're like, okay, this is not hip hop, but it's hilarious to watch like a white woman, trying to teach this stuff. Pretty funny when you look back, at history but I did well. And that's really all I felt good about was, hey, I'm here. Hey, you guys know me, casting, check me out. I'm still kicking. I'm still good, staying in shape and all that stuff. And, if you see, you don't see me for this, maybe you'll, consider my talents for another role. And that's what you should always do is continuously keep patting yourself on the back and reminding yourself, because it's so easy in this industry to get that imposter syndrome. But, speaking of the past and history, I've been watching, and I can't believe I haven't watched this before. When you have something on your list for so long and you're just like, I gotta wait and I'm already behind. That was like Game of Thrones for me. Well, now it's Outlander. And first of all, I'm trying to learn a Scottish accent, and I'm probably going to make one of those TikToks like, this is how it started and this is how it's going and this is how it ended. I'm just like, done again. And I'm just talking like how the Scots do. I'm like, oh, she's a bonny lass, like just saying all these things. But you look back and you see just the gore of war and how silly it was. And I always say war starts with a conversation and ends with a conversation. So I don't know why we need to do the stuff between. And so many young kids were killed in battle, and people didn't have the correct weapons. It wasn't even a fair fight sometimes. The conditions are terrible, living outside, and you watch all these things, and there's rape and there's pillaging and there's just all these awful things. And it just kind of reminds you, people are like, oh, I wish I could go back in time. And it's like, yeah, go back in time to visit and witness and then hurry home, because we forget how much we've progressed. Because in every era, there is seemingly good and evil living amongst us. And we're all trying to fight the good fight in our own versions of what these terrible situations are. The fact that women have a voice today, that they can speak up, that they can go to court, and there are still ignorant people who still look at women as if they are liars and that all of their experiences are not real and that they're exaggerating, and watching the lead girl in the show go from, yes, spoilers, she's very strong, dignified, and she's smart, and she doesn't, she's a feminist. She's like, yeah, I don't want you talking to me that way. I can do what you do. And to prove it, I'm going to go become a surgeon. And so she does, right? And everything she's doing is trying to prove her intelligence. And, the fact that men would say things back then like, take care of your woman, control your woman, like we are property. You know what I mean? It goes back to being misunderstanding and misconstruing the Bible, even, and relating that. And I'm not going to get into religion today, but even how women were married off so young and they didn't even know what sex was. If anybody watched Bridgerton, it's like, hey, what's going on? What does it mean? People just didn't talk about stuff. It was like you figured it out. Some women figured out that sex could be delightful, and some women were forced into marriages with old men and always thought it was miserable and didn't know. They're like, oh, I'm just a machine. I'm made to have kids, and here you go. And that's it. And half of the women would die during childbirth, because there was, no, future medicine that was, created yet. So we are very fortunate in those matters that we have things that can instantaneously, help us. People didn't even understand what fluids were. They put fluids in their body. How do you do that? So we've come a very long way. So we always have to make sure to reflect and be thankful for the things that we do have. Granted, there are still other countries that you're like, how are you? Do you not know what the future? Do you not know what we're living in our first world country? Like it blows my mind every day to think that we can all be living in the same year, but some are living like it's 200 years ago, like 500 years ago with tribes, and we're like, do you know? What this device is? Like, some people don't even have internet or Facebook or a cell phone or any of those things. And, they seem to be happy in their tribes, and the things that they do. And I think it's just always gaining perspective, but always hoping and fighting for more, and not just throwing money at things. I think time and time again, we show, even with this Maui fire that is devastating. And every time I, read the stories, which I feel like I should, it takes a moment for me to read them and feel what I feel. And I know it puts me in a bad place, but they deserve to be recognized and the stories deserve to be heard. And it's a terrible thing that has happened. And I can only hope that we learn from the mistakes and why there were not proper warnings and where everybody fell through on this. And even with this tragedy comes evil, right? There are people that are putting out fake GoFundMe's, and I actually donated to a family, and I wrote to the person to be sure, like, is this money going to you? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, okay, good. Then I know that. And even some people are saying don't donate to the Red Cross. It's like, because people always donate to the Red Cross. So why do we need to donate when the catastrophe happens? Why is it not the money that we already have immediately helping those people? So there can be a lot of issues on understanding where the money is being funneled to. And hopefully, we do get those to the people that need to immediately rebuild their lives and have a place to live. Some people were sleeping in their cars because they're like, there's no help. There's no immediate help. What do we do? I did listen to the daily episode. So if you haven't seen that daily episode, or heard it rather, then go take a listen. But today I wanted to talk about porn. So the other night, my husband and I got high, which never happens, but I was promoting a product, and I was like, well, I'll have a bite of this cookie. And we never understand like how much we're supposed to take. And when I was taking it, we were watching Outlander, and for some reason, like it makes your brain think differently, right? And I was watching these two episodes, and I swear to you, I've seen them before. In my brain, I was like predicting what the next line was going to be. And I'm like, or they would say it, and I go, yes, I know, I've seen this episode. And I did that for the whole hour of the show. And I just kept saying, no, this part. And then sometimes I would predict the wrong thing, because then I tried to like verbalize it and say it out loud. And it was almost like I was trying to create what would happen next in the show. But then I also felt like I had already seen it. Like it was like some weird deja vu crap, and, talking about the considering that the show is time travel, I started thinking like, did I go through some time travel? Like, wow, this weed really works. But it's a completely legal weed, and it was, something that my husband and I never do, and we're like, let's just try it, but we don't really get great reactions to it. He actually got sick the next morning. I think he had too much, because it's hard to gauge when it's food, right? You're not sure how many milligrams you're getting. I think what this shows is how things affect our brains, whether it's something that you get addicted to, like a drug or anything like that. And I kind of wanted to segue that into mental health as well. And, seeing people like Britney Spears, for example, she's getting a divorce again, with a different man. They've only been together for, I believe, 14 months. And it's interesting when you read the comments, I have to remind myself, like, this is like thousands of people that I don't know, and it's pointless. And while I believe support is what you should do, it's one thing to acknowledge someone's issues and support them, but it's another to put all the blame on the husband and not Brittany and defend Brittany as if she's done no wrong. And I know that, he has some things to say, and he even said something kind, like, I hope she finds her happiness or whatever. And people are still attacking him and being like, oh, it's okay, Brittany, you'll be all right without him. Find someone else or whatever. And even when they were like going through the whole free Britney and the conservatorship, I just don't understand why nobody like took a beat to like think about her actual mental health. It's not about just letting someone be free. Some people really struggle with their freedom, and they do need guidance and they do need support. Because being alone is not going to help that. People are ignoring the big thing. I mean, look, here's the thing. I support Brittany. I grew up with her, and I was like, oh, she's the sweet Southern girl, da 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 da. And then the fame got crazy. And honestly, I mean, have you ever had a meltdown in your life? I certainly have. Like, I've had a full nervous breakdown. I've had a few meltdowns in my life. And luckily, it passed and I was supported. But being that famous and constantly having somebody, like, you've probably been to Disney or a grocery store and someone's standing too close to you and you're just like, oh my God, could you please back it up, get off of my ass? You know what I mean? Imagine being that famous and constantly people shoving cameras in your face, and then they're made to look like they're the bad guys, right? Oh, this person got aggressive because I was in their face. Look at J-Lo and Ben. They look angry. I'm like, yes, they're angry at the photographers because they can't just like lead a normal life. They want to lead a normal life. And that is going to mess with your head. You're going to deal with every single comment and all of these things. And I really do feel that she has mental health issues. And I think that the husband couldn't support that anymore, personally, for him. And I think he probably did everything that he could. I don't know why everybody wants to immediately, bash him. And just because Britney's popular and famous, like, no matter what she can do no wrong. She's not a human. Like, she needs help. To me, it's clear. And it's weird that people are ignoring their instincts, which I think is kind of what happens in this social media world and in politics as well. People ignore their natural instincts, and they do listen to propaganda, and they think that that is true because the propaganda is coming from any Joe Schmo, right? So then, like, middle America and, the grassroots people are like, that's how I feel. Say it in layman's terms, but they're fueling misinformation, making people believe in things that are not real, and making people believe that this down to earth, thing is reality. Like, I'm thinking of Trump, of course, and I'm thinking of how he just like says stuff. It's so funny. He could just be like, he could just say anything, and he has a certain tone to it, and everyone's like, yeah. And I'm like, did you hear what he just said? Like, he could just be like, and I murdered 12 people last night. Yay. And everybody be like, woo. And then they're not really listening. They're not really listening to the minutia of what everything is. Anyways, okay, tangent. But I wanted to get into the addiction of porn. Now, for me, this has been an issue, I feel, that leans very strongly towards men. And it's, statistically proven that men watch more porn than women. And men have kind of like, I guess, the same way that we've normalized in Europe, like, oh yeah, like seeing somebody nude is like no big deal, which is true. I mean, I walked through a grocery store and there was like a nude magazine. I'm like, oh my God, what if kids see this? They're a little bit more open about things. And America's a little bit more conservative. I guess my big concern with it is, first of all, I don't watch porn. I've heard it explained, little boys, when we're younger, looking at the fuzzy channels because those are the ones that are not paid for, until you find out that it is paid for one night and you're going through the channels and it's 2 a.m. and it's clear as day and you're like, daddy paid for this. Somebody paid for this channel. Like, what is this? And just, nudie magazines and all the ways that boys would try to look at things. And I guess I don't have a problem with that as long as we're geared toward, I need to learn about a woman's body so that I know how to treat that woman's body. But porn exaggerates what reality is. And I think misconstrues what a man sees as sex and what it should be. And that is my psychological deep opinion about it. And that's not just me, these are people that have done studies on it. And for me, I don't get, I guess because men are more visual. I mean, is this really true? Can it really be this bad? You know, men create their own negative tropes, their own stereotypes by being like, I am men, I need to see and I need to do. Like, we, you know, take away their intelligence by doing that. So I guess if men are like, yeah, cool, you know, you can just call me a dude who likes to do, you know, it's funny. It's like when it serves a man to like pull that card and be like, yeah, well, we're guys. We're just visual. People will pull the card, right? But then if you are bashing a man's intelligence, you know, they're like, oh, no, you can't call us that. You know, like we're smart men. We have feelings too. And I'm like, oh, well, now all of a sudden you have feelings. You know, it's just funny how things will be pushed and pulled in society with men and women. Like if a man is caught out doing something, no one's like, you're a father. How could you do this? But if a woman is out, even women will judge women. How could you act like this? You're a mother. It's like, okay. And then if a guy is seen bringing his kid to the office or out alone without the wife present, wow, that is so wonderful of you. What a great dad you are. Where like a mom does this like all the time and doesn't get accolades. It's like, no, that's her job. That's her duty, right? But not to get into feminism too much. I want to stick to the porn stuff. So, as far as what we allow our minds to do and getting addicted to things, I do feel like porn can be an addiction. And come to find out, as I'm reading up on this, it can also cause impotence or erectile dysfunction. So think about that. Why would it do that? Like, wouldn't it just make it stronger? Well, just like anything, if you are drinking a lot, if you are a heavy smoker, if you smoke pot, whatever that you do, if you do more of it, then your body gets used to it and then you need more of it, right? So you begin to build a tolerance. So if men are so used to watching these different kinds of porn, they get bored with certain basic vanilla porn, if you can call it vanilla, and then they start looking to other things like weird rape porn, which apparently is a thing, and just other things that maybe would strike their curiosity. So then when they get in the bed with their now very seemingly vanilla, which she might not be at all, wife or partner or girlfriend or whoever, they can't get it up because they're like, well, this isn't as exciting or dangerous or whatever as what I was watching before. And that is terrible. And as a woman, it makes me angry because, you know, I'm sitting here making a vow, trying to, not that I have to try to, but you know what I'm saying, be faithful and all those things. And then, you know, okay, so then my husband's just allowed to go jerk it off and watch other women. Like, what if I had brought like pictures of guys? I don't know. And then it's like you have that conversation, and then it's like, oh, would you be okay if I was just over here in the shower watching porn? You know, and guys will be like, yeah, it's totally fine, right? And you're like, well, why is it okay for you? If you think it's totally fine if I did, although I haven't tested those waters because I don't care to watch porn. Um, but why are you so okay with that? You know, that's what I don't understand in those conversations. And every marriage is different. Some people are very open about it. They're like, whatever, it's just sexual activity is different than love. People do know how to separate those things. And some people put those things together. I do feel like what's going to get you in the mood and going if you've already done the deed? You know, the whole point is like the buildup. You know, I mean, even in infertility, they're like, yeah, you know, you shouldn't give us your sperm until it's like been 2 days at least, you know, of a little bit of buildup. And because it'll make them faster a little bit. You know what I mean? There's all these thoughts and sciences to it. And I don't like it because it does make me feel like you're cheating or I'm not good enough when I'm a perfectly willing wife, you know, that kind of a thing. Can you quit? You know, how addicted are you if you ask your partner, oh, if it's no big deal and you don't think it's, you know, a guy who likes watching porn will write it off as it's not a big deal because they don't want to be told not to do something. So it's like, okay, well, can you not do it? Oh, well, what are you going to do for me? Everything's got to be a tit for tat sometimes, right? Oh, well, I don't know. I guess I'll stop cursing, you know. I'm Italian. Sometimes I curse. You know, okay, that's the trade off. Let's see who can win. And of course, cursing is way easier to like be like, you cursed, put $1 in the swear jar. It's like, it's not like I'm stalking. You're not stalking your significant other and being like, did you watch porn today? You know what I mean? So it's a little bit different, but I do feel that it can ironically desensitize you, and that it could cause trouble in the bedroom, and I guess if watching porn, I think if anything, watch it together, and then maybe that would get you in the mood to do it with each other. But then if one of your partners doesn't like it, why should you be forced to watch porn when you're perfectly fine just doing it with your significant other? A lot of marriages, like when they first start, they're like, I'll never stop chasing you. I'll never stop dating you. And people do. And I really do feel in marriage that you need to continuously date your partner, continuously get to know them, because there might still be things you don't know about them. I feel like people stop learning when they put a ring on it. They're like, okay, cool. I got you. I put in all that work and all that effort. And they're like, now we just live together. Well, if I wanted a freaking roommate, then I would just get a roommate. That's what I would do. I would get a roommate that, pays me the bills. Maybe more if I ask for more. That's not what we're looking for. As women, we are emotional creatures. We do have a lot of, we get a high and sexually off talking and having men be interested in the same things that we're interested in, and setting the ambiance, setting the mood. We can be annoyed when we have too much on our plate. And I understand that can be a catch-22, that some men feel like, well, she never wants to do it because she's so stressed out about the kids and work, and she's always doing a million things, and then she's too tired, so I'm just going to go beat off. But what you don't understand is you are perpetuating the problem rather than focusing on, well, how can I get her in the mood? How can I make sure my wife is happy? Why don't I do something nice for her? Why don't I take some chores off her plate for her so that she's not thinking about those things, and then she'll be more in the mood to do these other things? And then if you are the kind of wife that is like, no, I ban porn, but men feel like it's ingrained in society that it's okay and that's just what men do and it's totally fine. Did we learn from Barbie, right? In the world that we're living in, it's a man's world and we're just women living in it. Then there's the surreptitious part of it, right? So now you feel like you're being lied to. So it builds in a marriage. Now it's not just the act of watching porn, it's that you're lying and you're hiding it and it's in secret. You know what I'm saying? So there's all these layers that happen to it. And then it just makes women feel worthless and useless in that department. From my experience in talking to other women and men, most men prefer to do it in the morning. They've been sleeping all night and dreaming and whatever. They wake up and they've always got a boner. They want to do it first thing in the morning, which I've never quite understood that, because I'm like, usually after a guy does it, he's like, oh my God, I'm so tired, I could take a nap. And I'm like, why would you want to do it in the morning? And then, but some people are like, oh, it gets me ready for my day. Like, whatever. Okay. Like, I could give you like a solid starfish in the morning. Like, very rarely do I feel alert enough. Plus I take melatonin, so then I'm like extra, it's been hard for me to get to sleep lately. My mind is going like a million miles a minute. So it's hard for me to go to bed, unlike some men who have like a nothing box and they can just be like, yay, I'm sleeping. Bye. Off to La La Land, and they wake up refreshed. Well, not all the time are we waking up refreshed as much as we are trying to. And so for women, for us, it's like maybe we get in our workout for the day. And for me, like, I'm an afternoon delight girl. Like, I'm up, I've done my workout, I'm getting things done. And then I'll take a shower, and like before couch time and movie time and getting tired time, I'm like, the golden hour for me is anytime between 3 to 8 p.m. I'm like, get me during that time and we're good, because early morning I'm tired and late night I'm tired. So, that's just me. I feel like that is a large group of people though. And I feel like I just gave you the secret. Like, I just told you. And oftentimes in marriages, men will completely, it goes over their head and they won't pick up on a woman's signals. Granted, I feel like it could go both ways. I feel like I do my best to like, do, kitchen dancing, I always call it, like do something romantic, or I'll literally sit on top of you on the couch, or I will be playful, or I'll be like, kiss me on the neck or whatever. And then then they just move on to the next thing that they were doing. And I'm like, hello, could I have been any more clear? Like, hello, like, let's do this. Where I do feel like guys probably do that too. A woman's cooking, although that always sounds sexy in movies, but a woman who's cooking for you and her kids and doesn't want to burn stuff and is trying to get things done, maybe that's not the best time. It's like, oh, I tried to show you I wanted to do it. I'm like, oh, yeah, wow, I have something on fire and there's grease everywhere. Oh, yeah, that's perfect time. Let's just leave the stove on and go jump in the bed. So I think we need to be better in our relationships at finding more opportune moments. But with the future of technology, all of those, I always call it like the quiet moments, are gone. People refuse to allow quiet into their world. I went to the beach the other day and then I was out in nature filming this like little quick shoot. And I'm like, it's so quiet. I don't hear the cars. I don't hear people talking. I was like, oh, wow. Like, this is so zen. This is so nice. And we remove that because now in this digital age, oh, forget about it. I mean, we are constantly, if there's a second that we're even in the car. I mean, I see people, they're so bored in their cars now, like listening to music or a podcast is not enough, that they have to be on their phones. They have to be doing something. I get that sitting in the car could be boring sometimes, but look around you. Take a look around you, you know? The world is alive. Things are happening, and you will miss that downtime because that space that some people think is awkward space, that's the space when you're going to connect with your spouse. That's the time when you're going to go, hey, so how was your day at work? Or what did you think about that one thing that happened in the news? Or so I read this article about this thing and what, this is my favorite candy. What was your, like, things that you don't even think about? Like we forget that you might not, there's still things to learn about your spouse is what I'm trying to get at. So continue learning because this person that you married doesn't cease to exist. They don't stop living. Every day, new things are going to happen to them in their life that you might not know about. So there's no stopping. There's no end. It's not, I got married, I know everything about my spouse. There's still a person to learn. If you've been married for more than 10 years, trust me, there's still something more to learn about your spouse because they are evolving and they are changing and they will think of things differently. So continue to get to know your partner would be the best advice. Do not distract yourself with everybody else's partners and the advice that you would like to give them because you saw that they're getting divorced on social media or they broke up with someone and now you want to know about it, or whatever you're distracting or celebrity breakups, whatever you're distracting yourself with is not your reality. And too often we do become interested in everybody else's lives and forget to focus on our own and realize, what is stressing me out? Why is this happening? And your cocktail of the day is the Manifestation. This was found in St. Augustine, Florida. This is going to be Manifest Vodka, Zoco Pacaran, Creme de Violet, lemon juice, and Prosecco. It's very, very boozy, so drink responsibly. Enjoy. Again, for me, it is the skewed concept of reality. So it kind of removes, it's kind of the same way as if, you watch violent movies or there's men that are in the military and they can shoot people and there's surgeons that can do tons of surgeries and they don't get sick, nothing bothers them. When you do something like video games over and over and over and over again, you get desensitized to it, right? It's not violent to you anymore. The surgery is not gross to you anymore. It's not going to make you want to vomit. You really do build a tolerance. And not to mention, the stories are completely fantastical, right? I mean, people know that it's not about that, but I'm sure it doesn't help. And men watch that and it's just to get to the good stuff, but it also creates this false sense of reality, right? I mean, it's typically unrealistic performances and false motivations, like how we get here. These are not ways that people get to having sex, right? So we're teaching men out the gate like, oh, all you have to do is do this and dress like a cowboy and say this really dumb pickup line and boom, you're banging. Speaking of pickup line, I had a guy once say to me, and you can't make this stuff up, "You are more beautiful than a unicorn's vagina." Yep, that was the line. Yep, I think that was like random Tinder date or something when that first came out. As if social media wasn't enough to make us, have body issues, we are changing the attitudes of our body autonomy, right? And we're teaching men this is what women look like. This is how they should act. They should always be freshly shaven or have some sort of shape, and we're teaching men like this is what it looks like. And also teaching men this is how you do it. Those things, that is not how you have sex. And in fact, I probably shouldn't say anything. Let's just say, I've been with guys before and I'm like, oh, he's in porn star mode right now. He's in porn star mode. Like, I can tell the difference. I'm like, oh, this is what you think a woman likes. Like, you forget, women put tampons up there. We push babies out of there. For us, it is a hole where things can come in and out of, but that's not our pleasure zones, right? We do have that, hard to find G spot, and some women are different. Some women can, in certain areas inside get off. But a lot of it is external, and there are other ways that women need to be tended to. And I'm not sure that we're teaching enough of that. And plus, the women are faking the noises. That's another thing. I think women, and even women, right? Women probably see that and go, this is what men want to hear. So I'm going to make this noise because I've seen it in a movie and I think this is what I'm supposed to sound like. And I think he likes the way I look. So I'm just going to do it like this. And then we ourselves as women put ourselves in a position to not enjoy it because we're like, oh, I think this is what he thinks this is. And now I think this is what he would want. And then you could be lying. I'm sure there are women out there who've completely lied about their sex lives. And they're like, yeah, it's great. And they don't realize how great it could be. And if they were a little bit more selfish and focus on their needs, I will say I do feel like men are receptive as far as needs go. I will say most men I've been with, if I'm like, do this, they're like, okay. Like men are pretty good about that. I would say they're kind in that aspect. Like there's never been a day that even in regular life, my husband's like, well, if you ask me to do it, I'll do it. Because as I've mentioned before on my podcast, nothing occurs to men. Men don't have this innate, this, natural motherly, these instincts that a lot of women have to be like, oh, we have a child now. We should probably set up these things that little babies need. Men are like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Right. So men don't mind being ordered around in the bedroom. You can tell them higher, lower, deeper, pull out more, get closer to my body. I actually prefer when you're sitting up, not fully laying down. Put a pillow under your hips. It makes you closer to me. Whatever it is, pillow under the hips works, guys. Especially if you have any of those new mattresses that like super sink. You're losing a couple inches there. It's not him. You're welcome, men. I just saved you. Unrealistic performances, right? That can be very harmful. Quickly on the side effects, the tolerance and the interactions. One of the studies said that men who regularly consume pornography at high rates demonstrate a marked increase in their tolerance, of course, like we're talking about, of abnormal sexual interactions and behaviors, named toward aggression, promiscuity, and violence. And they can compare it to other addictions. Addiction is addiction. And sometimes people who are addicts don't know that they're addicts. And I think it takes being like, can I quit this, to realize. Same thing with drinking. Like a lot of people be like, yeah, I don't have to drink. And then they realize all I'm doing is thinking about drinking all day. Like I recently read Matthew Perry's book and he's like, it was all I could think about was where am I going to get my next pill, And it's like you think that your mind is strong enough. And sometimes you realize you've trained it not to be. Men will choose porn over people, humans, or even social events because of the serotonin and the endorphins it releases. That high could be something that you get from social interaction with other people, but instead you're like, what am I going to do tonight? You know what? I'll just go watch porn and then I'll be fine because I'll release all of those things and I'll get those chemicals and then I'll sit on the couch and watch my favorite TV show, right? So sometimes we have to challenge ourselves and put ourselves in other situations to receive those same types of good chemicals rather than depending on it from the same source every time. And then there's the people that really do have a porn or sexual addiction where they feel like they need to have it in public places and they're looking for it at their jobs or their work just to get a quick fix and get it done. It becomes like a hit. It becomes like nicotine. Like I need just a quick smoke outside. And that's why like teachers have been caught doing that. It's also a way of coping, right? So, not to say that everybody who watches porn is an addict. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying that it can lead to certain things. And as minimal as not being an addict, as minimal as just affecting your marriage, which I hate to say that that's minimal because to me that's a big deal. But what I'm saying is it's not going to get you in trouble. Like if you're a teacher doing things like, obviously, as serious as addicts can be. But it does matter, even the small amounts that you do watch. I actually got really excited because I listened to an episode of Smartless and Jason Bateman was like, I don't know. I don't watch porn. And I was like, what? And I was like, did you just admit that? I was like, this is great. And then, Sean and everybody watches porn. All guys watch porn. And then he's like, well, I don't. He's like, I use my head. And I'm like, oh my God, just like me. I use my brain. And sometimes it's not even my brain, right? It's just the feeling. You just start getting the feeling down there and then you go for it. Ladies, get a shower head. That's all I'm saying. You don't need the toys. On Mother's Day, go to Home Depot and get a new 6-speed shower head. You're welcome. That's all a mother really wants. After this podcast airs, all of a sudden everybody gets Home Depot gift cards for their Mother's Day gift or Lowe's, whatever, wherever you go. They all have the shower heads. And in severe relationship issues, I feel like men don't expiate their actions. And let's say they go out and a woman seemingly who's married to their husband seems to be flirting or having too good of a time. And then you have like a jealous husband. And it's like, what are you jealous of? That I am not flirting with you? Well, you seem to be disinterested. Well, I'm not disinterested. Well, you seem to be. Why are you acting like that? Why do you seem I should be flirting with you, with my husband? And I feel like sometimes people can push the blame and men don't even realize that it's a chemical thing happening in their bodies, that they are disinterested and not on purpose. Because, right, every guy will be like, oh, whatever, I could watch porn and you could be like, let's go do it. And I'll always be down. And they always say that. But be a man. We want men to be aggressive too. You forget that throughout history, like men are the dominant creatures. Like we like that they're a little bit more like they are the aggressors, not in a negative way. I'm not talking, and we sometimes like a man that can take control and command. And then on the flip side of that, if you are the guy who likes being taken over and, a woman or whatever, wherever you are in this, position, takes over and you're not really in the mood, you're sending bad signals back. You're saying, I've already completed today. I've already done what I needed to do. Your aggression isn't being taken as seriously anymore, right? So we just keep shooting it down. Ultimately, I just don't think that people should watch porn or find other outlets. I think that if you're married, you should try each other's outlets. And I mean like as like a last resort, like go to porn, but like try first, don't go, oh, this is just easier. I'll just get myself off, which I think is kind of what happens, right? And I understand everybody's like, but I'll feel good after I do it, so I'll just do it. But like try and see. I know that there's a lot of marriage specialists and therapists out there. And, even just that simple, like, let's sit and stare at each other. Let's make eye contact or hold a kiss for this long. I feel like when you're married, like you don't really make out with your husband anymore. But there have been times where I'm like, can we do that? Because I used to love making out with you. Like that was one of the reasons, I married you. I like your mouth. I like the way it feels. Like you're a good kisser. And speaking of kissing, I was just thinking the other day, I was like, people who are bad kissers probably don't know they're bad kissers because they just find other bad kissers. Like I've had people who've literally told me like they're the most amazing in bed or they're the best at sex and they understand every which way. And then they're the worst kissers. You're like, really? Who told you this? Or are people just being nice to you? Or like, are we just not compatible? Because I'm like, it felt like you just ate my face. Or whatever the situation is. So I guess there's a partner for everybody. And if it's two bad kissers, they think they're the best kissers in the world. So it doesn't matter, right? But yeah, I think it's funny when some people are a little too confident or cocky or whatever, and you're like, really? I don't know. I just stay neutral. I'm like, hey, if you think this is, I don't ever tout myself. I'm like, if you think it's great, awesome, thanks so much. I think when we're young and stupid, oh my god, I probably did this at one point, because I remember in high school, boys would be like, are you good at giving head? I was like, I don't know, ask my boyfriend. I was like, like, am I supposed to walk around with like a label on my head, like she's down and she's good to go down? Like, I don't know. Like, why does it's such a demeaning thing, right? That we need to be labeled sexually. Oh, she's really great at giving head. Oh, he's such a good fingerer, or whatever. It's so stupid. You're compatible if you're compatible. The end. Now, there's nothing romantic about porn. So then I ask, do men just not care about romance? Do you just not need to be romanced? Like, that breaks my heart that, like, you aren't ever seeking that, if that's what these studies, are kind of showing. That you guys just get so addicted to that. Like, women get addicted to romance. That's why we like our romance novels and we like our TV shows that are romantic, and men like to make fun of us. But I think it's so stupid that it's right there. Like, we are handing you the guide. Here is the guide. Why do you think we're watching these meet cute Hallmark crap and these soap operas? Watch it, you dumb idiots. It's right there. We're showing you what we want. All you have to do is copy that. Like, and instead you go to the dark side and you watch porn, which is not realistic. That is where I'm coming from with this. Now, there were marriages and relationships that suffered. Statistics have shown in 2018 that more than 2,000 married adults discovered that their chances of divorce doubled when men began watching porn regularly, or whoever, after their marriage. This is more for men, statistically. Relationships do suffer. I've definitely talked to many women who are like, God, I hate that my husband watches porn, or this has been an issue, da 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 da. And so to those men out there who don't, that's amazing. I think it's great if you've chosen not to do that. Granted, I hope it doesn't push you, and this would be really mean, I think, if guys are like, oh yeah, well, I could just be out there flirting with other girls and then try to F them. You want that instead? Oh, okay, yeah, let's just add another threat to the situation. Like, no, if you want to get married, it's just me. That's what you signed up for. But of course, you don't want it to cause infidelity by taking something away from somebody. Sometimes I feel like men are that way. Like, why are you always trying to take stuff away from me? Take away my video games, take away my porn, take away my food, put me on a diet, dee 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 dee. Women aren't trying to take things away from you. We are trying to arrive at an equal place, is what it is. Is that we want each other to feel like we're on an equal playing field. That's really all it is. And also another factor that people forget, and I don't watch porn, so this is stuff that I am reading about, but it makes sense to me that this would be out there this way. While it sexualizes everyone, there is racism and sexism and classism, especially amongst the Black community in porn. In porn, they will show, Black women in distressed communities, leaving people feeling dehumanized, right? And we're pushing these different ethnic groups and putting them in boxes. And watching all these different types of porn can normalize abuse, because sometimes there's very aggressive porn, or now there's rape porn. And so people, like I said, if you're watching a horror film, you get desensitized to that. Then you might think like, oh, I could probably stab somebody, no big deal. I could probably rape somebody, no big deal. And you definitely change the way that you see things without realizing that you're doing it. You're looking at violent behavior, or you might be more, if you see somebody getting, raped in the streets or hurt, you might not want to help them. Or you see a man slap a girl on the ass, you might be like, yeah, that's normal, and you're not thinking about it in a negative manner. You're thinking of it like this is normal. And so your brain goes through this process called neuroplasticity, and your brain will kind of alter itself so that it can be more efficient the next time you do the activity, which is what our brains normally do, right? You start running and then you get better and you get better and you get better at it. And the fact that people are trying to copy porn in their sexual encounters, imitation, right? I mean, Even though when we're kids and we're little, we imitate, we're sponges, we're doing that to ourselves as adults. And for some reason, when you become an adult, people think, oh no, that could never happen to me. I'm not some little kid. I'm not an idiot. I'm not a sponge. But we do. We can very well be manipulated very easily. And it's really sad because all of this stuff has led to human trafficking and sex trafficking. And a lot of the porn out there isn't even legal. It's not vetted. Some of the stuff that you're watching, these people might not even have approved it or realized it, and that it was not a legal form of it. And it's really hard to monitor these things. Women, the average age of trafficking is 12, and it's looking to groom young women. And I always say it's so true. It always happens in my life, and it's probably saved me from a lot of bad situations. But if it's too good to be true, it probably is. That phrase has saved my life. If a man is approaching you and he's offering you the world, nothing is free, right? So there will always have to be something in return. And I think young women are impressionable, and they're like, oh, and women like to be complimented. And so they think, oh, this is a legit job or whatever it is that they're getting into. They're feeling beautiful. And then unbeknownst to them, sometimes they're being given drugs, and then they get addicted to the drugs. They don't know why. And then they depend on the man that brought them into the trafficking in the first place. And of course, this is all funded by rich, wealthy men. And it's definitely illegal on both sides. And it's stuff like that that makes me furious, because I feel like, the answer to everything in politics too is like follow the money. So we can follow the money. So why aren't we throwing these rich men in jail? Why is everything money, greed being paid off? Like, I am absolutely, and I understand, like, justices, judges, like, they can all get fired for accepting bribes, but like, this needs to happen more often. Like, it's just too obvious to me. It's one of those things that you're like, duh. And you see it too. A lot of these sex crimes, trafficking, there are people in broad daylight. They could be doing your nails at a salon. A lot of these are massage parlors. There could be people in a back office that you don't even know that are drugged up and being forced to do these things. I know that Los Angeles, California is a huge area for trafficking. I also know Winter Haven, Florida, I believe, was one of the top ones. I think I watched like a whole Sting, documentary series about this stuff. And so I just feel like that pleasurable activity is, if you're religious, is that Satan, like, kind of, you know, creeping up in you. If you're using it in an unloyal way. Because I'm not saying that masturbation is, and for me, like, I understand, like, that could be in the Bible. I feel like masturbation shouldn't be so bad. Like, it's right there. It's part of our body parts. Like, hello, we can't control that this happens. Like, literally, I've woken up and had an orgasm before, and I'm like, whoa, did I just have an orgasm? And I was just sleeping, and I'm like, what the hell? Our bodies do crave those things. They do give us positive endorphins and serotonin and, all those good chemicals. They do give us those things. So why avoid the good thing? It's just, be sure, like, too much of a good thing can become a bad thing. It's like everything in moderation, balance, all those things. I think it's just wise to check yourself. Like, if you feel like, it's like, if you've cheated, how many people, and I don't know, I have not, but how many people out there have cheated and they get off, they're having the best sex of their life, and then as soon as they finish, they lay down and they're like, oh, and they can feel their heart just sink, or they feel like they might vomit, like the pit in their stomach, because they're like, they know that was bad. I ask the men out there, after you watch porn and you get off, and then you walk into the other room or whatever by your wife, and you're like, hi, babe, do you feel a sense of guilt? And if you don't, you might be a little bit addicted, because I feel like you should feel a little bit of a sense of guilt. Like, I just hid this from you, and now I'm coming out here and acting like, oh, everything's great. Okay, I'm happy now. I mean, a woman, she kind of knows. Why is he so happy? He has no reason to be that happy. He must have just had a good time. It's the same as when people have sex. Like, you can tell when people are working on their marriage, when they are just like glowing and happy to be around each other. So I just think that people need to push further at finding the sexual tension within their marriage than trying to find it in another outlet, because we are fragile and fallible, and we will find the attention where it is given. And I feel like it's a mistake to say, oh, I'll just watch porn because I think my wife doesn't want to do this as often as I would like to. And then for a woman to be like, well, since my husband gets off on porn and doesn't seem like he wants to sleep with me, maybe I'll look for attention elsewhere. And that's where people get in the danger zone in their marriages. I can definitely say that I've been tempted before. I've been put in situations, and it can be very tough, especially when you're going through a hardship. If you are already struggling in your marriage with something else, geez, throw that into the pot, and you're just making it so easy to escape. And nobody ever said marriage was easy. It's really hard. It's really hard. I mean, we always expect like to be with somebody and like I don't know, it's not that we kind of expect to be married to our soulmates or someone who gets us or understands us or thinks we're the bee's knees or is like us. I think it's very rare. And if you do marry someone exactly like you, that also could be boring sometimes, right? But we can't marry ourselves, which is completely, narcissistic, I guess, to just but that's how we are. We see our faces. We tend to marry people that feel familiar to us because they kind of look like us. It's kind of like freaking, Nazis. It's like being incestual. They just want everybody to look the same, right? But there's beauty to people being different. And once you can see the beauty in your partner being completely different from you and appreciating them from afar, then those two differences can spark an interest in one another and bring you closer. So I think, at least for my marriage, I know we are completely different, but I think also being open minded, like I say what I'm feeling, regardless of if that leads to a fight or not, because I know that's only going to help my marriage. It's not going to hurt it. It might feel like in the moment, like, oh, we're fighting. This is going to hurt my marriage. But I promise you, unless you have things that are beyond, every marriage is different, but it usually should be able to bring you closer if you are in fact doing all the loyal things and being in a good partnership. And not to say, it's true, some people don't work out, and we too often in this world care what other people think, and we think that you're dead by the time you're 40, but there's a whole nother half of your life to live. So keep in mind, like, your happiness is key, but try to seek that happiness within your marriage first. If you look for it, you will find it. If you look for it somewhere else, I guarantee. But try to look right next to you first and see if you can find that happiness. And again, some people are just trying to start over and be like, wait, where is that spark? We had it, right? Let's find that again. And just to bring up that neuroplasticity again, so basically they refer to this feeling as a supernormal stimulus. So it's an exaggerated form of what's normal. So, for example, porn can take your brain's natural stimuli, our desire for intimacy and connection, and give us more quantity. So, more exaggerated and more supernormal versions of that desire. So, through the neuroplastic process, porn can change what we perceive as normal, and then we warp what we find to be exciting. And we make real intimacy seem less interesting by comparison and harder work, right? This is too hard. I'm just going to do what's easy, right? Now, we could talk about what's fun about porn. Of course, I'm talking about all the negatives. I think it's hilarious. Now, the few times I've watched porn, I only did that in my early teens because curiosity. And I had a boyfriend. And it's funny when you first start dating somebody, you are like, I will try every position. I'm going to buy all the games. I'm going to go to the porn stores. Like, what? I mean, I guess, I don't know. I guess I shouldn't judge. I was going to say what grown adults are going in there, but everybody's on their own timeline. Maybe they're revisiting this or they never got to go to a porn store. But, when you turned 18, it was like a big deal to be like, oh, what's in there? It's so taboo. Get in your car, go with your boyfriend. Your boyfriend might buy you something from the store, like as if it's this, sexual gifts are always weird. Like, you expect me to use this? I'm like, okay. I remember my second boyfriend, when I went on tour, he bought me toys. I couldn't believe it. He shipped me toys, like as if to encourage me to not cheat on him, like here. And I was like, oh my God, I was so embarrassed. I thought it was going to be this like romantic gift. And I was like, oh my God, like, what is this? But I think it could be used for good. I just think like the stories are so funny to me. I think it's hilarious comedy. It is your curiosity just like looking at the bodies and what they look like. But as I mentioned in my vagina episode, it's just kind of like, but you're giving people a false reality, like because pornographers obviously they look for the biggest dicks. They look for like, certain looks. They look for a specific type of vagina. They look for certain things that they deem entertainment, high entertainment value for their products. And, here I'm getting negative again. I'm trying to find a positive in porn, right? What's the positive in porn? I guess just that you get off. I'm like, I don't know. Like, instead of porn, I would rather watch a TV show that has a sex scene in it that simulates sex, I guess. And plus like STDs, what's legal, what's not legal, age limits, teaching people that, when this girl is screaming her face off, I'm like, she is in pain. She is not enjoying that. She's just making the noise and waiting, holding her breath until it's over. I'm like, give me a break, So some of it is laughable to me. Let me tell you one of my favorite sex scenes. God, what movie was this? It was The Redhead. What is her name? Julianne Moore. And it was with that actor from The Thing Around the Sun. Anyways, Don John. And I actually like gave myself cred for being able to do this back in my younger days. And I still can do it today. And in fact, I did this with my husband the other day and he can always hold out for me and like he could not. And I was like, haha, it's not about being like, gah, 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 and just like attacking. She does this scene where she just sits on him and like they hardly move and they both get off. And I'm like, I'm like, oh, I know about that. Cause it's really just finding the spot. It's like, once you get the spot, you can really do like minimal movements and it's like, and it could be like the best orgasm. Doing really fast movements and doing everything quick does not necessarily result in an orgasm. And maybe I'll just do a full episode on sex because when I saw that episode, I'm like, I have done that before. And I was like, it's great. It's one of my favorite things. And it's rare, right? Because then we also get in our heads. We're like, oh, the guy's going to be like, why aren't you moving so much? Or why shouldn't we be doing all this? And you start getting in your head about it. And then when you feel really comfortable with somebody or you're just like confident in the moment, I'm like, I'm going to do this. Like, and it works. You're like, ha ha ha. Like you feel like magical. Like, I just taught you this. I'm a witch. Like, I don't know. Like you give yourself the cred. But I do think, see, stuff like that. I learned more from just that little episode than from porn. I don't know. I just don't get it. And that's just me. But I think checking yourself constantly, even with the social media stuff, there's so many things that we don't realize that mess with our heads on a daily basis. That are manipulative. Anyways, well, that's my episode on porn. Yeah, porn. Porn. All right, guys, porn. So we did it. We got through the episode about porn. I don't know if I missed things. I think I honed in on the important things, but ultimately be open communication. If something bothers you, tell your spouse. Be like, this bothers me when you do this, and see how they react to it. We have to be able to work together and find common ground. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me today. This has been Katie Rose, served straight up with a twist.